Hello everyone, my name is Rick Hopkins, retired nonprofit senior executive, full-time entrepreneur, and author of the Amazon #1 best-selling book, Nonprofit Doesn't Mean No Profit. Now, even though I wrote a book, I am not a scholar. I'm an operator. After a 30-year career with one of the country's largest and most prominent nonprofit organizations, I decided to retire early and founded GM Hopkins and Associates, my nonprofit consulting firm where I specialize in fundraising and board development. My highest and best purpose is to help struggling nonprofit organizations transform their scarcity mentality into one of abundance. Now, in many ways, the journey has been cathartic, providing many of the lessons learned highlighted in my book. And my time is limited, but I will share 2 of those lessons with you today. Now, there's clearly an elephant in the room here, and its name is profit. Nonprofit organizations seem to have trouble grasping and embracing this concept. When nonprofits gather, we love to talk about the number of people we serve and the great work that we do in the community. And this is true. However, it is equally true that we must also find a way to make our nonprofit organizations financially sustainable, which is just a politically correct way of saying profitable. Another way of saying that is there can be no mission without margin. Now, somewhere along the line, someone started a vicious rumor that nonprofits were not supposed to make a profit. That rumor has caused as much organizational chaos and has set us further back than any recession or economic downturn ever could. Remember the game we used to play as kids where you would whisper something in someone's ear. They would in turn whisper it to someone else. And by the time it circulated around the room, you would hardly recognize what was originally said. Yeah, it's like that. Well, contrary to popular belief, for-profit or not-for-profit status is not determined by whether or not you make a profit. It's what you do with the profit that counts. For-profits pay out their profit to board members, staff, and shareholders in the form of salaries, bonuses, and dividends, respectively. In other words, it goes right into someone's pocket. A not-for-profit, however, reinvests its profit directly back into the organization and its charitable mission. Now, Congress intended for these designations to define the specific purpose for which the organizations were founded, not their bottom line. For-profits are created solely for the purpose of generating profit. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's the very basis for our capitalistic society. Not-for-profits, however, are created primarily to meet community needs, to be our brother's keeper, so to speak. Now, it really is just that simple, but something got lost in the translation. Now, for example, when screening prospective consulting clients, I always ask a couple of basic questions like, how did your organization do financially last year? Now, I would get the following answer with alarming consistency. Well, we lost money last year, but we did some great work in the community. We served a lot of people, and I really feel good about the work we do and the lives we touch every day. Now, I don't mean to sound cynical, but for me, everything after we lost money began to sound like this. Now, didn't they realize that by continuing to lose money, they wouldn't be around long enough to help anybody, not even themselves? Their staff and board seemed to be okay with the red ink on the operating statement, wearing it proudly like a red badge of courage. And that, as they say, is the problem. Now, what was their solution to the problem? The answer was usually, we'll be okay once that big grant comes in. Really? Is that the best you got? Nonprofits do not live by grants alone. So don't be a one-trick pony. Grants are just the icing on the cake, not the cake itself. In fact, grants are actually the fifth step in my patented high five fundraising process. Well, more on that later. Another question I ask: how much money does your board raise? A simple question, often followed by a brief, uncomfortable period of silence or nervous stammering. Board development is the single most significant and often most neglected factor in the success or failure of a nonprofit organization. Now, you'll definitely want to write this down. Chief among those significant factors is funding the organization's charitable mission. That's right, good old-fashioned fundraising. Fundraising is a little like getting your cheek pinched by your eccentric, rich old aunt. You really don't enjoy it. In fact, it really hurts sometimes. But she always gives you money. Now let me share a true story. A prospective client told me that she and her husband founded a small nonprofit a couple of years ago. She was concerned that to date they were still providing 100% of the funding for the organization out of their own pockets. Now she wanted to know how to get her board to engage and help out financially. Now the answer to me was obvious, so I asked a few probing questions. How many board members do you have? 6, she said. When you filled out 501c3 paperwork, how many board member names did you submit? 6, she said. Are your current board members the same 6 names you originally submitted for approval? Yes, they are. You see where I'm going with this, right? I then asked her to think about her mindset when she was filling out paperwork, and specifically to the section asking for board members. What was her process in selecting the names? Well, like most people in that situation, she chose friends, relatives, sorority sisters, golfing buddies, not people informed about or committed to the mission of her organization. There was absolutely no conversation around a personal commitment of their time, talent, and treasure. That is why she and her husband were in this rowboat bailing water all by themselves. Now, you may want to write this down. You can do a lot of things wrong running a nonprofit, and you will. But get board development right, and you will still come out smelling like a rose. Now, the last chapter in my book, entitled 10 Steps to a Strong Nonprofit, clearly outlines the process of quickly and efficiently recruiting, training, and empowering your board. I call this my Phoenix board development process, so named for the mythical bird that rises from its own ashes more powerful and majestic than before. Now I want you to take out your cell phones right now. Access your texting function and text the word book to 301-768-4543. Text the word book, B-O-O-K, to 301-768-4543. And you will get instant access to a link to purchase my book, Nonprofit Doesn't Mean No Profit, for only $16.95. Now, one of the challenges of being a nonprofit consultant is that the organizations who really need my services the most simply can't afford to pay for them. However, thanks to the wonders of modern technology, I'm now able to offer personalized consulting services to individuals and groups via the internet. My 2 most popular coaching programs, the High Five fundraising process and the Phoenix board development process, are now available online. Each program will utilize a unique combination of specialized training videos, coaching calls, and video conferences. Automation improves economies of scale and allows for quality, personalized program delivery at an affordable price. Now, normally this program, if delivered by traditional face-to-face consulting, would cost $2,400 for 16 weeks of biweekly sessions. But by offering my services via this unique online group coaching model, I can offer you weekly sessions for only 4 monthly payments of $297. Now that's twice as many sessions for less than half the price. Now you will learn how to easily and effectively implement these proven nonprofit success strategies that will take your organization to the next level. Now I am so sure that you will love my coaching program that if in 30 days you're not completely satisfied, I'll give you your money back. No questions asked. So to register for either the High Five fundraising process or the Phoenix Board Development process, text the word COACH to 301-768-4543. That's text the word COACH, COACH, to 301-768-4543. Now, due to the amount of time and effort required to deliver a quality, individualized coaching experience to each participant, enrollment in each program will be limited to only 6 participants. Only the first 6 will be allowed to register. The others will be placed on a waiting list, notified first of any cancellations, and invited to participate in the next program offering. So don't delay, act now. Well, this is Rick Hopkins, and I'm wishing you the best in financial success.